first, I think this was like a weekend, this was one of our first marches and demonstrations that we did, which was at the Bank of America Plaza. I think the banks are, really tied into sort of the enemy across the board. People associate with banks, and it's for good reason for the most part. The banks are just a symbol of an industry where they have enough money to be able to write their own laws to regulate themselves, and be able to negotiate bailouts when things are tough for them, but without their CEOs are still making huge bonuses while they're foreclosing on millions of homes and not lending to people that need it, start small businesses and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of anger directed towards the banks.
Sure, yeah. So this was an action that it's impossible to, we just wanted to give like a snapshot. I mean, not only when we were in the park, but after in the park, there's so many actions that go on with Occupy Atlanta. And there's so many different people. And right now we're pretty decentralized, so we're spread out all over the city. So we just wanted to give you a little sampling of some of the stuff that we did. This was a action that we did while we were still in the park. We rode MARTA up the heart of Buckhead, and I think we went to Lenox.
We tried to go to Lenox, and they kind of pushed us out. So
we weren't holding any signs. All we did was we had tape over our mouths, and it said different things like Occupy, or there's Shabak. I think it just says Rebel. That's all it says. And we simply just walked around malls. I think we did make it into Tiffany's.
We did. We went into Tiffany's, which I'm not gonna lie, was one of the greatest moments. We kind of just walked in there. We didn't do anything. We walked in, but the salespeople, the looks on their faces were just priceless.
Was this? I'm sorry. Was this on Black Friday?
No.
This is different. Okay.
This is different.
Black Friday we did something else. This was in October.
Yeah.
And I think I went into Tiffany's and actually pulled my wallet out, and I had some cash on me, and I was trying to wave the cashier over, and she would not come. So the tape was so intimidating. I mean, it's a very intimidating thing to walk around with tape on your face that says, I think mine just said Occupy or something like that. And I think Rob said, expect us, because people came out. And we rode around MARTA, and everybody somehow knew exactly who we are and what we were doing.
And I think, one of the reasons that we chose to do this was, it's a perfect example, again, of the wealth disparity in the country. So in the retail sector, across the board, most of the retail industry is not doing well at all and hasn't been for the last few years. The only segment of the retail industry that is doing better than they ever have been is luxury goods. By luxury goods, I mean like Louis Vuitton and like Hermes and stuff like that, like very, very expensive brands, which just kind of really shows you that they're not suffering at all. You would think You would think that in a recession, those would be the first things that people would cut back on, but
And that sort of cuts to sort of like what the Occupy movement's trying to sort of shine a light on, is that we're not actually in a crisis of resources. That's a myth, right? Actually, more resources now than there have been. Plenty to go around. We're in a crisis of economic priority, right? And that's why, how is it possible in a recession for the richest to get much, much, much richer? It's because there's not enough resources, that the resources are being consolidated more and more and more. Not each day, each minute. Each minute. There's more wealth consolidation now than there was 1 minute ago. And so this is like a trend that we have to stop. To occupy a space just means to exist in the space. And that's literally what the Occupy movement is fighting for, is an existence where we all have an equal voice, we all have an opportunity to thrive.
So this is another bank action that we did. Just kind of really set off the tone of focusing on foreclosures, which we've done a lot here in Atlanta. We actually foreclosed on Bank of America. It was on Veterans Day, so they were closed. someone there may have locked the doors to the bank. I don't know.
No, they did. I saw the locks
Yeah,
afterwards. It was like U-locks.
Yeah.
The bank was foreclosed on that day by someone in Occupy Atlanta. And we had veterans to help us do that up there. This is, you guys heard of the Koch brothers? K-O-C-H, not Coke. They're part of the problem with money in politics. They're definitely one of the big local offenders. They put a lot of money into politics. Nationally, yeah. But a lot of people don't know that they work out of the Georgia Pacific building, which overlooks Troy Davis Park. And so we told them that if they didn't commit to stop the flow of money into politics, that we would levitate their building using spiritual forces. And they didn't, so we actually surrounded the building one day, and we got some faith healers and some magicians and some old hippies from the 60s, and we levitated the building, sort of.
What came out of it?
Well, they had to do a lot of work on the foundation. It's expensive. It was expensive to fix all the damage. No, I mean it was just kind of a street theater, I guess. And a lot of people learned about the Koch brothers that didn't know. So a lot of times a political action is about awareness.
Say something that even maybe on the spiritual realm of it, that things we may not see have maybe taken change to the forces just in doing that, bringing those entities together. Open for that as well.
This seems like more of an obvious question, but the sign that says "Who's paying for all that tea?" that's a reference to the British Tea Party.
Yeah,
That's actually a reference to the, and I don't want to get into a big debate, but the Tea Party, like the
Oh, I wasn't
Bottom.
okay. I wasn't sure.
the Koch brothers, and they have thousands of think tanks and fund a lot of the extreme right wing.
politics.
And a lot of people credit them with sort of playing maybe the biggest role in co-opting the Tea Party.
Yeah.
People are familiar with the Tea Party too,
Right.
not the Boston Tea Party.
No.
The Tea Party, the Sarah Palin Tea Party,
Tea Party,
right?
right.
So that started as a people's movement. I knew folks that were involved in the Tea Party. They were like libertarians and anarchists that had an analysis that was like big government's a problem, state violence is a problem, and they sort of got co-opted by and became just part of a fold in the Republican Party. And the Koch brothers were a big part of ensuring that happened. And Occupy movement not so much unlike the Tea Party. I mean, their analysis was a little bit broader and looked beyond just big government, looked into big corporations, right? But we have so far we've avoided being co-opted by any rich Democrats so far. Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought that, I was going to ask you if the Koch brothers are related at all. Do you know these guys have been passing out flyers in some kind of a labor sense for years around here? Like they'll go around a building and they have that flyer that has like a rat on it, and they say that this building was worked on, the contractors they use to work on this building are they prevent union workers from working on this building. Shame on
America.
For some reason, I think that's connected to the Koch brothers. But do you know anything about that? I might be wrong.
I don't. I know that the flyer is connected to Bank of America building.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The one that's right next to the park down here.
Right.
Because I've gotten it a bunch of times.
Yeah, and they've moved around. Different parts of the city, they'll show up. And I mean, people criticize it sometimes because they say, oh, the people who are handing out the flyers are not the actual, workers, that, they're being paid by somebody to hand that out or something like that. But I couldn't remember. I didn't know if there was a connection between the Koch brothers and that group,
Yeah,
or maybe not.
I don't know.
I think
but
there's a connection with the renovations to the SunTrust building, how the university's paying for the renovations so that we can move office space
Right,
over there.
right.
Those workers are not being paid properly, and they don't get benefits and things like that. So they were actually passing out flyers on Portland Street. And I think it was against the university administration.
Okay. Okay.
There could be two, you know, there could be more than one.
Right. Sorry about that.
So, okay. So this is actually our first eviction defense that we took on early on. We actually started this while we were still in the park. This is what is it's Task Force for the Homeless. It's usually called Peachtree and Pine. It's a homeless shelter. It's the largest homeless shelter in the southeast, and one of the few that kind of opens its doors to anybody that needs it. Thousands and thousands of people rely on them for just a roof over their head, food, and the services that they provide. They've been in a battle with the city for quite some time now. The city's been trying to foreclose on the property and take the space. It's in kind of a prime location, right downtown, right down the street from the Fox, right across from Emory. So, just looking at the building and being in Atlanta, you can see why somebody might think that it could be put to better use. But so we started occupying the 4th floor of the shelter, which it was just an empty space. And we continue to this day to occupy it. We've so far put off their eviction, which I think at the time that we moved in was supposed to be a week later. They have a court date this Friday, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so it's just another example of economic priority, and that they want to take the shelter with absolutely no alternative to it. So where exactly are these people supposed to go? It's kind of the question that.
One more of my question.
Yeah, we look
That's
at
my question for you.
where are the people going to go?
Now, if I may, I understood from interviewing that it's owned by Emory. I have been following it for quite some time, and I know that there was a female who had willed it to the shelter. And I understand, I don't know how true it is, I haven't investigated, that Emory now owns it and need to build up, remodel it for their own purpose. So I'm wanting to find out where they intend to put these thousands of people that are.
And that's a question that's even bigger than Peachtree and Pine. That it keeps coming up with the question of economic priority. As people may not know, that right now in Atlanta, 6.5% of our population is homeless. Right? It's a striking number.
On top of that, for each one of those homeless people, there are 6 empty houses in the city of Atlanta.
Right. Yeah. So this is just like we saw earlier this month, or I guess earlier last month, because we're in a new month now. They're right around the Capitol. Anybody hung out around the Capitol over the last few years? You know the ledge that kind of goes around. It's a concrete ledge that surrounds 2 churches. Goes around Central to MLK, around the whole block. It has been a very popular place for homeless people to sleep. Anybody know why?
They've been put out.
Well, because there's vents that put hot air out. The ducts that heat the city buildings, state buildings, come out right underneath those ledges. So when it's very cold, it's a warm place to sleep, warmer than under the bridge, and it's also safe because there's police presence constantly. And if you're under the bridge, it's a good place to get robbed, beaten, and raped, and that happens. Well, the governor got tired of seeing these folks. Actually, the mayor got tired of seeing them and said, they got to go. And then we sort of came in, set up an encampment.
It was actually, I think, originally it was a judge.
Right.
The courthouse is right there. Who was basically embarrassed that the jurors would have to see that going into court every morning.
So rather than dealing with the problem, they just said, we're just going to evict these people and make them disappear.